I'm Bethany.
And I'm Lauren.
Welcome to the Healing Collective podcast, where we explore the paradox of healing at the individual and the collective level.
Join us as we invite guests to share their personal paths to freedom. Mary, tell me who you are.
Just me, Mary Donovan, fascial stretcher.
What is it called?
I stretch fascia. I am a body worker that has a focus on fascia.
And I'll just cue this up, which is that there have also been like some other emotional things going on that I think have been positive for me. But I have, for like the last 8 or more months, 10 months maybe, took on all this weight that didn't want to come off. And like I wasn't eating that differently or anything, but just like 10 or 12 pounds that came on my body that normally when I'm like, okay, I'm going to release this weight, it comes off and it would not go. And I've had like a lot of, Lauren, I've been having like these hives all the time and like all these kind of like COVID long haul problems and all this pain in my abdomen. And I've been working a lot. So I've been sort of like chronically sort of underslept and under-resourced, I guess, for like kind of a long time. So I've been kind of addicted to sugar and caffeine a little bit, which I'm not even a caffeine person most of my life. I went to Mary 3 weeks ago almost, had my first session, and then I went back 2 weeks later and she's like, how you doing? And I'm like, I've lost 9 pounds. I've completely stopped craving sugar and carbs totally. And I've completely quit caffeine, but I hadn't even registered that. And even my mom was like, what happened? You lost weight. You look great. You look like really beautiful and alive. And I was like, yeah, she was watching the kids while I went to my second appointment. I told her about it. And she's like, this is like pretty typical response of just people having big changes once you get in and work with the fascia. And so I'm like fully bought in, and I've referred like 17 people to Mary.
How did the two of you know each other?
Carolyn is friends with her and gets worked on by her. And Carolyn was listening to me complain about my stuff. And she's like, you need to go see Mary. So she set me up with Mary. And interestingly, remember Cameron from our Astrophilosophers episode? I was just tweeting today and he said something about what he's working on, some kind of nodal, whatever, but he's like, I'm doing fascia, this, that. And I was like, let's talk about fascia. And he's like, it's everything. Everyone's gonna be talking about this in the future. And it's the fountain of youth. And he explained why. And I was just like,
thank God you're here, Mary. I've been waiting for you.
Yeah.
I've been calling this in. And my sister, is this the same as the fascia tool?
Not at all. Not at all.
maybe we can start by talking about what we're even talking about.
Yeah, what are we talking about? I work on fascia with my hands and my feet, and I'm working with you contracting a muscle, like you contract it, and you keep it contracted, but I lengthen it.
It's like counter pressure almost, right? Like is it counter pressure? No.
It's resistant. So it's resistance stretching. So that is what helps us screw into fascia. The muscle's there, but actually I think to back up, fascia is everywhere in us. If I take out all your organs and all the fluids in your body and all your bones, there is still fascial Lauren. And we don't know that. Not enough of us know that. And so we don't do nothing about it, right? And so it's running the show in a lot more circumstances than most of us know. And so when you work it just a little, you get great benefits. It doesn't have, fascia reacts differently front body and back body. So on the back body, like our hamstrings, our central hamstrings, fascia gets dense. It gets dense on the back, on the upper back, shoulders. It's the hunch. we'll keep track of our hunch. It's going to disappear. That was the thing. Carolyn was like, not Carolyn with the hunch, because Carolyn has some surgery up here, but like, boom, just changed. That's what real quick.
When Carolyn was like, you need to see my friend Mary, the reason, like, she went to her for in general because she had some stuff, but I have like a hunchy thing in my top of my neck here, like top of my back, lower neck, because I'm pretty sure it's because I developed breasts really fast, like over one summer in high school. I went from like an A cup to a D cup, and I got a lot of like unwanted attention. So I started to wear like big clothes and hunch and hide. And then also like phones and driving and computers. Like it's just been compounding. But Carolyn had a hunch too. And she went to Mary, and in one session, that hunch went away. Gone. Yeah. And it's never come back.
I was about to say, and it doesn't come back. That's what's interesting.
Right. So when you change fascia, that's why it's different than I'll go into why it's not, I don't work as if a tool from the outside can address it, because it's an inside job, the stretching that I'm doing. So I'm trained to feel fascia. Like, is it tight? Is it tense? Is it dense? Is it scar tissue? And I don't really care what your muscle's doing. I mean, it's there, it's fine. But to address the fascia and get it maybe up here where we were just talking about, to thin out because it's overly thick, literally thick, not figuratively thick, like it's dense. Like my favorite analogy of the this week is, you take pork tenderloin, you wrap it in a bunch of saran wrap, and you cook the shit out of it in the microwave. And so the saran wrap is literally stuck to the pork tenderloin. That's your fascia. When it's dry, dehydrated, not taken care of. And it also, so fascia is also holding, outside of like the repetitive motion injuries or the repetitive movement injuries, there's emotionality is held in there, and trauma. And so that's one of the places you just hide stuff. Oh, I'll just stick it over here. And it's gone. So that's fascia's like everywhere. And it's like, I'm always talking about, it's hard concepts. So I'm doing a lot of educating when I'm working with people, because we're really focused on muscles. I'm going to take my muscles, I'm going to take them to the gym, and I'm going to work them, and I'm going to get some. And fascia doesn't work like that. It changes a lot faster, and it isn't innervated. So, I'm hauling on Bethany's legs, and she can't feel me tearing thick fascia out of the back of them, because the nervous system and fascia aren't talking to each other. It actually has its own entirely different, separate nervous system. So it's kind of like I think I told you, like, her kids or her grandkids are going to be standing in her kitchen in a million years and go, Nani, I know why you're standing like that. It's because the dense fascia in the back body is overly thick, and you haven't stretched it sufficiently. So you're excessively elongated in the back and excessively contracted in the front.
I dream of this day. I'm excited for this day.
So far, me and just not enough others are the ones who talk like that. So that is fascia. It's everywhere. And it's not just on your muscles. It's in them. It's around all it's in the cells. It's on the tendons, everywhere.
Is it the same as connective tissue?
Yeah, it is a form of connective tissue.
Okay.
And there is more than one type of connective tissue in the body, and it's mostly made of collagen, but there are different grades, or there's different types.
This aligns to a theory that I have. So I work with this energy worker, and all I can ever tell anyone is like, she's a future doctor. And before I met her, I kept getting this intuition, like the kind of healing you need, it's like 50 years. Like it won't be mainstream for like 50 years. So I was like, well, but I just have this sense that like our healing is really very simple, and the ways that we can heal are very simple. And but we're just so disconnected from these, these other ways because we've been so westernized. So it makes a lot of sense to me that when you're here, and to like this idea that it would be something that in the next 50 to 100 years, people are more aware of, but aren't now.
Right. And using it specifically and appropriately. Yeah.
And how did you come to this work?
And my brother introduced me to it. And I was with him in Florida visiting my mom, and he was all hyped up about it. And he helped do a stretch on me. He didn't do it. And my head exploded. And it wasn't strenuous. It is just that. And I think this speaks to what you were saying about the simplicity of a healing, is that it was like a dream I didn't know I had about my future and all the hopefulness I had for a life that I really didn't believe I could have. So
that's what happened in your mind when you had fascia.
When I did one stretch, I mean, it felt like my head exploded off and like sent this giant light
chakra, probably. Yeah.
So, and after that, I just pursued it like a crazy person. And he said, get stretched, like I am with Bethany, as often as you can. Do anything to do it. Just trust me. And I did. And then I was somebody else.
And how long ago was that?
That was 6 years ago or so.
Well, this is a big problem because I don't live in Boston. So how am I going to access fascia?
A, you should. And B, the good thing about me, at least, is that I'm good at working with people long distance, over Zoom and all the other private things. Oh, so okay. I learned that at the beginning of COVID, the practice that invited me in. I started to work at a practice at the beginning of COVID. And
just like Carolyn.
And so we did a women's retreat online, and there were a lot of us practitioners, and I did classes, and people's response was, and I had done classes in person with people, and people would come in whenever after work or when I did them or on weekends, and they would leave looking much better. Everybody looks better. So,
so you teach people to stretch themselves.
Yeah. Yep. So in lieu of living here, that's the next best thing. Or you teach, or you stretch with me, and we.
But like if you're with Bethany, you go hands-on with her to stretch her.
Right. Because
and my favorite part.
What's your favorite part?
Is getting strapped into the table.
Of course.
I have a board that's foldable, but its board is about 6 feet long.
I like a board,
and it's got big straps, really big Velcro straps for the chest, for the hips, for the legs.
It stabilizes.
And people, it looks like, like a torture table. And people are like, whoa. One. Everybody says, whoa.
I want one for the house.
And, but I'm like, you'll understand this in a minute. And so it just, by holding down your hips or whatever else we hold down, you have to stop compensating as much as you would. So it really, a lot of what I see as my fascial work is like, I'm with a spotlight here on my head, and I'm working in a section at a time, and I'm really asking that those muscles in that area to do specific things. And if it can't, well, we've learned something.
So here's my experience. So when I wake up in the morning and I move to get up out of bed, like 20 or 30% of the time, my low back seizes up, and I have to kind of walk a little bit funny until I start to get some movement, and then things will kind of settle and be a little more normal.
Okay.
And so I've had life-changing healing experiences with chiropractic, and I understand the nervous system and how that works. And there's been really potent, meaningful things. So I get adjusted, I move my body, I take care of my nervous system. Basically there's all this stuff that I do around my body, and I'm a different type of system than you use, but I'm a body type for the Enneagram. In that I'm instinctual, and I'm very aware of what's happening in my body. And there's these places that I'm like, that's exactly like I'm like, this is exactly the place that doesn't feel good. And when I would go to the chiropractor or try to work out or try to stretch or I'd get a massage, it wasn't getting that part. And then when I first got on the table with you and you started to, and I was coming in with complaints around, you know, I've had cancer and I've had all these abdominal surgeries and I have like pain in my abdomen basically when I'm physically active. And I've had this extreme kind of response to having COVID a while ago with my immune system and hives. So this is what I was presenting with. And she worked on my legs. And when she was working on my legs, I was just like, these are the exact places in my body that I've been trying to communicate with that I haven't been able to get through to. Like, I know they're there and they're like, ow, and I didn't know how to talk to them. Like I couldn't figure it out. And one of the most freeing things is I've been trying to go to classes with like Paul Dag and my mom at the fancy gym at Lifetime. And I go and there's certain stuff I can't do. Like I'll try to do a squat and my hips are like all wonky coming up, like one side comes up before the other. And I'm like, I don't have my power, like my strength and my power. Like I can't access some of my body power. And she was like, yeah, stop doing that. You can't do that. Don't do that. And I was like, first of all, thank you for just telling me like, I can't do that thing that I'm trying to do that I'm realizing I can't do. But she was working, it's fascia, but it's also, you're working on meridian lines. So She was like, Chinese medicine, like working on my meridian lines, and we worked on my hips and my legs. That's what we worked on. And then I lost nearly 10 pounds, quit sugar without trying or realizing it, and quit caffeine, and started to feel a whole lot better and started sleeping better. And when I get up out of the bed, I'm not hunching and hobbling and having any kind of tension. So,
but other than that, it sucks. It's ridiculous.
So I'm a full-blown convert at this point, but that it was like, as an instinctual body person, I know exactly where is not right. So to have her just instinctually know exactly where, like I didn't talk about my hips. I didn't say that it hurts when I wake up and I walk around. To get right into those spots felt really important. And after working for an hour, she had me go look in the mirror, and it's like my face was full of like aliveness. It looks like when you do LSD and you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, I look beautiful. Fabulous. I look alive.
I don't know that experience, actually. I can't empathize with that. How do you spell fascia?
Fascia.
Fascia.
We have to talk about the shadow side.
What is this?
Is it like the fascia? Because we have the fascia blaster. My sister uses the
shadow side. All right. So
I don't like that.
I don't just work on a table. I often work on the floor. I often work on my feet. But the way that Bethany was presented to me by Carolyn is, Bethany to me from Bethany.
And Carolyn, she was telling me.
She did say abdominal stuff. So I was just too afraid to work with her on my feet, with my feet. So when people are on the table, I get to know them easier. People in extreme pain, it's better, like just get on the floor. We're gonna, which is why people came to see me in COVID, because they're in pain and they're pretty open. Like COVID, are you kidding? I got this other thing called chronic pain. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of different things, and I do it different ways. But why? So this work that I'm doing, all of it's an inside job. So the fascia blaster from the outside, I'm like, huh? Because the fascia that is here in her upper back is overly dense, and it's overly contracted. This is her back. It's overly long, not contracted, right? And this is overly tight. Mm-hmm. So when I'm working on the back body, you can't believe the force it takes. I'm very strong. I mean, I'm physically oriented, which is why this whole bloody thing appeals to me at all. So you can't believe the force it takes me to move this delicate flower's arm, because the force of fascia is stronger than muscle. So if I could put the force of her fascia on her from the outside, she'd pass out. It's that strong. So a fascia blaster, what can it do really? I mean, I'm not saying it sucks.
You say you address it from the inside, but you're outside of her body. So help me understand like how.
Right. So, so we're going to do this exercise. So regular stretching, like in the gym, is this, you have a weight, it's here, you're holding it, and you extend and lengthen and pull on this elbow or whatever. Okay. With this, what I'm doing is she pulls in, so she resists me a little less. This is contracted. This is shorter, right? And I work through her resistance, and the fascia has to respond. It has to. I mean, for you, you have to believe me, but that fascia and that pulling it while she's resisting me, it kind of screws into the fascia, and where the fascia is overly thick, it just breaks off and it starts thinning out.
It's like a workout for your connective tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
and what it does is that it's like this. So it's the perfect, work for me, because I'm extraordinarily impatient. So, you take your muscle to the gym, and to change your muscle, you gotta go back to the gym. You gotta do something. When fascia changes and we thin out thick fascia, it is changed. The fascia, like it was thick.
Well, then my question is, I'm so intrigued on so many levels, but I'm not going to go there because we'll go too far out.
Till Tuesday.
I mean, I will eventually go there, but not in this moment. But, oh wait, what did you just say? Okay. But my question is, how did it get that way? It changes immediately, but what creates it to get that way?
So we all have fascia. We're not trying to get rid of all of it. It's like when you get chicken and you got a chunk of a chicken thigh, a big piece, under the skin is that filmy, slippery thing, and then the meat, right? That's their fascia. Our fascia is not like that because we're old. We're older than that chicken that's just a couple of months old. But we're trying to get back to that slippery, loose, moist state. So how it gets that way is through repetitive movement. And on the back body, from sitting our ass in chairs all the time.
This chair right here is why I have to go talk to Mary.
Do you think there's a psychosomatic, like, could it be that like energy is, this is what I'm thinking about. This is just to show you what I'm thinking. I'm like, because like I'm learning about healing at the level of light. Light comes before energy. Energy becomes matter. Right. And then, and the ways that like our thoughts and even the programming in our system can create in our reality. And so I'm starting to play with how everything in the body is just a representation of what's going on internally in consciousness. So an example for me is like, I'm finding that I have certain memories that are held in certain parts of my body. And when I heal those at the level of light and energy, that part of my body heals. And I'm wondering how fascia could be like related to that.
I think it's right there with it. I think that the work that I'm doing is intensely physical. It's a big dip in the pool of physicality. There's a lot of people that I see who are trying to address their problems with their mind, and you're
like very in 3-dimensional reality. Is that what you're saying? Like, it's like, this is very 3D hands-on work.
Yeah. But, and it it doesn't exclude spirituality and emotionality and analytical thinking either. But it's so for some people, and that's the game or the adventure of being a body worker, is that people are all different types, like the Enneagram is types, and I type people in with a whole different thing, but
which is super on point, by the way, and I want to get to
it's
that.
really interesting. But it's some people are like, they literally they do everything with their mind, like work everything out, or they're really big thinkers, and you can't change your fascia with that. It's intensely physical. I'm not trying to make it intense. I'm trying to make it only intense. I'm trying to make it only physical for a few minutes. Let's take a break and go in the pool where your body, along with me, can be trusted to work it out, and get at a lot of crap really quickly. Like, not everybody loses 9 pounds in a week and doesn't crave sugar and stops caffeine and whatever.
But I'm like
else.
Real extra. So if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be me.
So there's that.
My experience of it was like, so, and here's like another thing. So with my type, so all this strapping down that happens is trying to, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, like stabilize your body so that we can get really specific about where she's focusing attention. So like basically, she's having me pull my legs up and down and move around and high and low, and she's providing all that resistance, and
you're providing the resistance, and I'm pulling against
resistance, and I'm providing resistance. And it was like, I know how to flip my hips and move my whole spine and like clench my stomach muscles in order to move my leg down, but that's not the goal. Like, the goal is to just let my leg move down so that it can get really specific around which part of my body it's talking to. I really appreciate Mary's language. Is like, I think actually doing CLG work and tracking my body sensations and reporting on that is of service, because I can report, I think, accurately as much as I can, like what's happening in my system. But it's like, when I just stop having my whole body try to move my leg and I just let my leg move, it feels not powerful to me. I'm like, oh no, I feel weak.
Right. People like, nothing to do with strength. Nothing to do with strength.
And so it's a big part of it is like relaxing all of this other overextended power that's trying to move something. And this does feel spiritual and emotional too, but I'm speaking about it in the physical way in this moment. When I stop trying to do all this shit with my hip and I just let my hip rest and use my leg, that's like the most potent. Those are the most potent movements and the biggest changes, I guess. And so it's been interesting because I'm like, I actually have fear come up because I'm like, oh, I'm so weak. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I just let my leg push this, I'm so weak. And she's like, no, you're not. You're extremely powerful.
I'm sweating like a pig. I'm sweating profusely, and you feel weak because, we can't feel our fascia.
Right.
I'm feeling her fascia. And it's not weak.
Because you're feeling the resistance and how much resistance there is. And she's interpreting the resistance.
So she is resisting, but you can't resist so much that I can't move her, right? So she's resisting enough that we can screw into the fascia, that the movement of the limb requires that the fascia get involved. And I'm riding the wave of the vein of the fascia because I want to move it where it's tough. I don't need to move her where she's already strong and flexible. I need to move her where she's tough and where she can't really move so well.
I remember a couple years ago, I went to Brooklyn to visit my friend Anna, and I had been obsessing about fascia blasters. and like looking at before and after pictures and being like, I want a fascia blaster. I want a fascia blaster. I want to do this. And my friend Anna had one. She's like, I don't care for it. Hi, Anna, shout out. And she gave it to me and I like bought more of them. And every time I would use it, so fascia blaster is like a plastic tool with a lot of like nubby kind of knob things that you're meant to rub on your own body. It's a torture device. And I believe that it does like bring some blood and fluid and attention. It's like basically, you know, get rid of your cellulite or get rid of your wrinkles by
like it's a massager.
Abusing your body externally in the hot shower, you know, in some kind of regular pattern. And I tried to do it. They're in the shower. Like I have like 9 million of these devices. So there was something that I was really drawn to about all of that. I knew
Are they colored? Are they white color?
They're all white.
I think that's it. I mean, that's it for me. I'm like, wow, what a pretty color.
Say more. What do you mean?
I just think they look like, I think they're made to appeal to us humans. Part of it's that it's white.
And
me.
so is I don't have the
one.
Facebook page of before and afters. But I said to her, like, we're talking, and I didn't even know. Karen's like, go to Mary. I was like, great, I'm going to Mary. And I came in and I was just like, oh, fascia. Yeah, like I have fascia blasters. And I was like, is this like a fascia blaster thing? And I forget what you said, but you were like, no, it's none of that stupid bullshit. It's something that I forget what you said, but you were like, no, that's all that awful, whatever it is. And
it's just that this work that I'm able to do is an inside job, and that is an outside tool. So we're getting fascia to change from the inside, and that's what gives powerful changes. Also, I'm for, like I didn't touch my body much in the olden days. And now like I'll run my hand up along my outer thigh and there's some stuff that feels like crap sometimes. And I'm like, and I tell people, it feels like crap. It is crappy tissue. Keep rubbing it. I'm not like jam a stick in it. And, but like, yeah, like what's that about? Like, that's the pork. That's like probably where the saran wrap during the overcooking of the pork tenderloin in the microwave is stuck to the muscle. So yeah, rubbing it's not a bad thing, but it's a Band-Aid for cancer.
And it's like, I feel like there's this.
What does that mean? It's a Band-Aid for cancer.
It's just a little touch. It's something that's not going to get as deep as it can as a fix.
I guess my thought is like, we talk about consciousness, and when we talk about more like emotional things or psychological things, we talk about attachment and how unhealthy these really strong attachments are, and how more surrender and non-attachment and some flow is healthier. And it just sounds like a parallel around fascia. And we can only do so much thinking about, like, there's some ways where I imagine having a physically embodied experience of releasing attachments and more flow and more movement and not more non-attachment. That's what occurs to me. I don't know how literal any of that is, and I'm early in my experience with getting stretched, but like, I'm not attached to having a coffee and bagel every morning with cream and vanilla flavoring and cream cheese. I'm not attached to eating the Halloween candy bag that I bought several weeks ago. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm like, I don't need to do that. And I'm like in a different space around some of these things that I felt pretty attached to. And even like some people and some ways of thinking, I already can feel less attached. So I'm just wondering what the full capacity of not having these like matted, attached, like physical embodied experiences, like what that can even open more spiritually and emotionally. Does that track?
Something I've been thinking about, if I could just add really quick, is, or what I'm experiencing is like, I started with a lot of like mind work and consciousness work, but the impact of that was then to like, okay, start to be aware of my emotions. Moving my emotions made me more aware of my body. And I'm actually experiencing my body as lighter. I am experiencing less pain in my body. And so I'm saying all that to say, like, I have this sense of like freedom, and like real liberation is like, would be this really free, light experience physically and emotionally and mentally. You know, like your mind is clear, your body is pretty like clear and open, and your then emotional body, like the pipes are clear, you know, and that's like a full experience of like freedom.
Or being alive. Yeah, that's what we're shooting for, is that kind of balance. And we're all coming at it from wherever we are.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when I think about it, like I have done a lot of work around mental clutter and emotional clutter. And I am now really it's very clear to me that the universe is calling me into like, one, I keep getting very clear that I should be vegan. I should only be eating like things that are made of light. I should be way more thoughtful about the soil they come from. Like all those things matter about my body, like my cleaning my gut. And then stepping into physical, like you're talking about, would be like, is like the next frontier for me, I think.
And a lot of people, there are a couple of things I want to talk about. You know, I was attached and spoke about a condition with my foot like it was mine. Like I hated that it was going on, and I was frustrated, and I felt shame that I'm this body worker and I have plantar fasciitis, and we're going into the second year, and oh my God. And like that I spoke about it like it was mine. And yeah, it was mine, but like mine. And folks, we get attached. And and I used people to assist me with that, and it helped me learn a lot. It helped me learn a lot of things. Like I now include releases in my work, where I didn't before, because neurologically, it helps the brain understand, no, you're gonna live through this. We're gonna press on this spot, but look, the joint's fine. You're fine. All is well. It's getting looser. And, so.
Is that what you did with the ball the other day? Oh,
so I was doing a release with her. So I'm grateful for, other people that helped me learn releases and really see just my deep love for my affliction. And, I'm not alone. And it wasn't, plantar fasciitis, it sucks, but, it's not, I'm not as bad off, and it's gone now, as lots of other people's stuff. There's that. And then, I come at it, yes, there's anatomy, and I'm not an anatomist. I don't really, and I learned my work initially in stretching along the traditional Chinese medicine meridian lines. And so those lines move qi. I'm working the muscles along these lines. But
that's the part that I'm interested in, is how that relates to the energetic field. Are there any releases that you could do like over Zoom with me, not touching me?
Because I can't touch you.
Like, shall we try one?
Sure. Is there an area of your body that comes to mind that could use some love?
I guess the main ones, or what came up, was this top here, or like related to my arms.
Sure. We can do it together, because this is Bethany's stretch too.
Shocker.
Okay, so Bethany, can you pull back even more? So go back like 3 feet. So she's gonna lead it, and nice and slow, and I'm gonna. So you see how. So I'm gonna do the side. She's doing the front.
I've been doing this every day.
All right. So this is resistance stretching that I would be teaching you. So the resistance is that this top hand is resisting the other hand from coming forward. So the top hand is pushing back.
Uh-huh.
And you keep pushing it back while at the same time bringing it forward. The bottom hand brings the hands forward. You can keep your arms, elbows bent a little. You can straighten them. Keep pushing back with that top hand. And your aim is to get, come down towards your pubic bone. Nope, you're not touching it.
I'm not touching what?
Your pubic bone.
You're not going that far.
And then stop and start again.
And then you can switch. So basically your two hands are pushing against each other. So one arm's pushing down and one arm's pushing up. And you start up over above your head. You can do it laying down, or apparently you can do it sitting up. Is it best to do it laying down though?
It's what the one you like and the one you do is the best one.
And you let them resist each other, and you start up top and you let the top one overpower and push against the resistance of the bottom one slowly. And you slowly push down.
And feel what you feel. What you feeling? Talk us through it.
Just a lot of wanting to breathe out.
Cool.
And a really like some.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do like 3 more. So we're pushing back with one hand.
Does it matter if I switch hands or like should I keep the same?
Switch. You can switch every time.
Okay.
Okay, pressing back with the top hand, the bottom hand pulls the whole arm thing forward.
And it doesn't have to be super intense.
Nope.
It could just be like just the right amount of resistance, like not like pushing super hard.
And stop. In this kind of stretching, the most important part is the beginning and the beginning middle. There is no end. There's not like, oh, let me feel it. No, because the way we've been trained to stretch is to really just pull on our joints, and we don't want that happening. So
and what meridians, if this particular stretch is connected to what meridians?
So that meridian is, we're stretching the thymus meridian, which isn't a meridian in Chinese medicine, just FYI. So Bob Cooley has taught me this form of stretching, resistance, flexibility, and strength training. And he took 4 vessels out of Chinese medicine for, I can't figure the word right now, I'm not governing vessels. He took 4 extraordinary vessels and turned them into meridians in his system. So in addition to the 12 standard Chinese medicine meridians, he added 4. And this is one of those.
Basically, this is some new shit. This is some real new stuff.
It sounds integrated. It sounds like he integrated a bunch of things. Yeah.
Yep. Yoga and Chinese medicine. So, so for Bethany's, her upper back, for that hump, this gets at it in terms of the resistance helps the fascia actually thin. When I do it, we can use a lot more force because it's like here at home, it's like driving down, this street here. When someone's doing it on you, who can bring a lot more force to the situation, it's just like being on the highway.
Yeah.
So that's why, go to somebody sometimes. So there are always the things with Chinese medicine and the meridians of the intangibles, not the body part that they're about, but the things that they're about. Like this thymus meridian is about healing and about kind of the dark side, understanding the dark side that balances light.
Wait, say that last part about what about balance is light.
This meridian kind of gets you in touch with like the dark side. If we did this stretch for 20 minutes, all of us together, and Bob Cooley did this with people as he was developing his work. Everybody starts talking the same because they're kind of have changed into a thymus way of being, which isn't how we walked in here tonight, which isn't, and so you need to do more than 5 of them. But what was interesting as he was healing his body and exploring stretching and the resistance and stretching, he found that with deep amounts of stretching that people became what the meridian is about.
So is that what you mean when you say like I became a different person?
Yeah, that for me it was about openness, that I was excessively self-referential, and I wasn't about, oh, let's see what information I can get. Let's be open. Like that wasn't who I was. And so that's been my journey since I got stretched.
And here's some openness. She had a session with me and I was like, will you be on my podcast? You want to come over? And she's like, but
I was like, I'll probably go anywhere with you.
Yeah, that's what she texted. I'll go anywhere with you. I was like, that's
and
the
do
best
anything.
fucking thing you could say. I love that so much.
Well, I was going to say that with my healer that I meet with her every 2 weeks, and there's always something around like thymus for me.
Yeah.
That's like a regular thing that
always this way in my work. It's always this, more of this, more of this.
So seriously though, how can I get connected to someone? Is there anyone trained in Chicago that you know or anywhere close to me?
I have to look.
This is the thing. I'm just like, who in this city? And it's limited because it's not like.
Right. It's a specialty. That's how I feel about this particular method of the healer that I work with. It's like, there's not a lot,
Yeah. And, because, the worst of it would be working online with me, because it's worth feeling different maybe and experiencing changes. It's worth working on your thymus, because you're not, so many people are like they're going to I have 2 clients who are having that parathymus surgery. And I'm learning way too much about surgery because at least in New England, we wait forever till we're just mega broken and headed to surgery to come see somebody like me. And I'm like, what are you joking? Mm-hmm. And I have to learn about all these conditions. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I spend time on Google. I'm just like, so you're not there yet. And so now is the time.
Well, I was listening to this other like light doctor podcast, and he was just like even talking about diabetes and how badly we have to treat our system to get to type 2 diabetes. Like it's almost like, and to have so many people with type 2 diabetes, we've just like pushed our systems to places that are unbelievable.
Yeah. And this is a real health upgrade when you get work done.
So there's been all these things. So probably why they pay me what they paid me at my day job is because there's been a handful of things that I'm like, ooh, that's important. That's a real thing that we're going to pursue. And they've listened to me about that. Like I'm usually in the future, and actually this relates to your typing, which maybe we can talk about next. I'm in the future, minimum 5 years. Like this is where that's headed. And so when I hear a thing that I'm like, that's it, even if I don't even know why, I'm just like, this is it. So this has happened around like, certain like food certifications, like organic and non-GMO, or consciousness work that I'm into, or regenerative agriculture as a concept, or somatic stuff in the nervous system. I'm like, this is it. This is fucking it. This is my new thing. That this is like, if there's been a half a dozen things in my life that I bet my life, I'm like, that's the thing. That's the next thing. This feels like one of those things to me because of what happens in my body when I'm on her table and what's happening and like what the results and the data points have been already. I would like bet my life on it. And I'm like, this is the next thing. This is the next thing that people need to pay attention to. That's as emphatic as I've been on this podcast about anything. Probably so
Yay, definitely.
You've had a lot of healers. So what's the typing that you do?
It is, again, it's Bob Cooley's work, he developed genetic personality types associated with all the meridians, including the 4 that he pulled out of extraordinary vessels. And so the types occur in 4 different worlds: the physical world, the analytical world, the spiritual world, which is logical thinking, not just all the things we think of as spiritual, and in the emotional world. And so he believes people at conception are a type, and that that's just our main and initial orientation to the world. And our job is to embody all of them, all the types and all the ways of being. And part of me changing so much was kind of being able to understand who I was in a different way. And I am a physical type. And there's 4 types in each world. So there's 4 physical types, and I'm one that's lung. So the lung meridian type. And even in Chinese medicine, sorrow and grief are housed there, and power and endurance and leadership. And I'm like, what? And they're like, don't people always look to you for la la? And I'm like, yeah, so I was just able to kind of test that out. See, do I want that? Do I believe it? I just wanted my shoulders fixed, and then all this typing, all of it. But I use it a great deal in my work. I type people all day long, not to typecast them, but to understand them. And the way that Bob talks about it, which is just beautiful, is that they're all geniuses. So this thing that she's talking about Bethany speaking about, I can name in the future, I can name that thing. That is in her genius. That is just straight up, you can go to school for that, but it's not the stuff you have to go to school for. And so I never had to go to school to be powerful in the ways and be able to get in with people in the ways that I do, and it's so being able to be your best self and develop and have people assist you in developing yourself bigly, and being open to all the other geniuses in people.
Tell her about rugs.
Yeah. So I was in rugs for 35 years. I had a career. I had a
throwing rugs.
So I was very,
rugs,
physical. I like to do the physical part of things. I like to move my body. And so my shoulders were kind of, after 35 years or so, were kind of angry with me. And I did a lot of pulling, which is in my type, by the way. There's all these, everything, so much stuff, so much depth of and information. But I did a lot of pulling of rugs out of van and flipping rugs, from stacks of rug, and, holding big bales of rugs. And so my shoulders were like, we don't work for you anymore. We have a problem, and we're just going to shut you down, which is how it happens. I ignored it. And, I didn't have shoulders till all of a sudden I had problematic shoulders. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to have surgery. And then my brother told me about this stretching, and I went, and I wanted my shoulders fixed, and my lower back's kind of nudgy. And all of a sudden I didn't have a shoulder problem. I got stretched often. I got stretched every 2, 3, 4 weeks. Endlessly. I don't even know how long. And then all of a sudden I didn't have a shoulder problem. I don't have a shoulder problem now. And I can manage my own back. I don't need to see somebody for my back. I need to see somebody because we need their perspective. I have the occupational stress of lifting Bethany's limbs and all the other people.
God bless
but it's a power and an understanding of the body that I feel like I'm putting together, muscle by muscle, for myself.
This is like what you do all day, every day. This is like your main thing. And like with Bethany, how often would you recommend she sees you? Like, is she on some kind of
she's not on some kind of because I part of what I was not very responsible for myself and my body. And so I'm insistent that people be responsible for themselves. And they're like, so how often should I see you? I'm like, yeah, how often should you see me? I'm like, yeah. And the sessions, they're not like a massage. They're like playing Twister on a table, like red foot left.
It's a workout.
It is a workout, and it's, and there's talking, and even just, I'm just like, keep talking.
It's extremely embodied for me because she's doing something which is speaking to a meridian. So she's like asking me what's happening, and I'm trying to get better at like articulating, but I'm like very clear. It's almost somatic. It's a very embodied thing where I'm just like with my body and I'm following her instructions and prompts and just reporting. I'm like, oh, it's talking. Oh, it's not talking. It's quiet. Something's weird. Oh, I can only feel it this way. Like I'm kind of, I've only had 2 sessions so far, but I think I'm trying to cultivate the right words to help her hear. It's really just me listening to my body, which is not different from somatics. That's exactly what we're doing. We're like listening to the nervous system.
Or saying it. I want people, I'm like, please say what comes to your mind, even if it is, oh my God, I forgot to take chicken out of the freezer.
It's like the breadcrumbs of somatics, because in somatics, we talk about, it's called SYMBAP, but it's like sensations, emotions, there's memory and images, there's like all these different ways that we get this information from the body. And so even if it's something, I'm just having a memory of this, it's like whatever weird thing, I'm like following the breadcrumbs of what my body's giving me as she's helping me talk to different parts of my body. And then we're addressing that and then deciding where to go from there based on that. Like I just had a memory of when I had this surgery and it was like this. And she's like, cool, we're going to go to that place now. So it's like, it's a very dynamic.
Right. Like experience. I have, a lot of times I think of what we're going to do in this session. And then the person walks in the door and it's out the window, or we were working on, she wanted to work on her upper body. And so
I want my hump gone.
The hump gone. Can we get we're working it. And then she's getting the pain under her right breast.
Yeah. This terrible pain that I've had for years coming straight under like my ribs on my right side.
So I'm not like, yeah, we'll get to that. I'm like, well, let's go there.
Yeah.
Like there's no place better to go than to where your body's compensating or talking because it's talking. Let's talk back.
Yeah.
So that's fun. That's a fun part.
It's like, it's this reciprocal, like listening, engaged sort of experience, embodied experience that I didn't know I was like desperate for. I'm like, oh, fuck, this is what I want to do.
And it's fun. I mean, people are laughing. I mean, even,
yeah,
I'm hysterical. And this is like, I'm often channeling Ricky Ricardo. I mean, I'm like, who am I? But nobody has left because of those reasons. And even in the work, when I'm pinning and stretching, I'm pinning with my foot, a painful area
hurts
on the outside of your thigh. And it hurts.
I like it, of course.
And then you're doing movements, I'm directing you in movements, and people are screaming and howling. I'm like, when it's done to me, I'm howling and swearing.
I'm like, oh yeah.
Because it's like, let's be up close and personal with it. And not that's a part of it. We're making the fascia stretch in different directions. We're making it thin out where it's overly thick. Blood is coming like that. People are like, it's warm. It's light. And so it's a time to be intensely physical in a goofy way. And it really works because sometimes for people who are really heady or, which is not me, I'm not a great thinker. I never look out there because in physicality, the time reference is now, right now. And then now.
She's right now.
And more now. And she's like the fact that she can go, but my husband is an analytical type, which is future based. And he's always doing things to attend to the future. Well, I can't really get up early enough to be ahead of the dude because, I know about the future, but I can't even do it as fast as he's doing it. Right. But it helps me not hurt him. You know, it helps me like calm the savage beast down that get, you know, interpersonally makes us not understand why we're not like each other, you know, and for him to be like me is to ask a fish to climb a tree.
Mhm.
It is, and vice versa.
What type do you perceive Lauren might be?
Oh no.
I feel she's Carolyn-y.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What's Carolyn's?
She's in the spiritual world. But Carolyn, he's in the spiritual world. Which is where perspective is housed. Like the perspective of all things. Like time references, all things, you know, I'm like, Carolyn, do you want to blah, 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 blah. And she's like, whoa, my God, there's like 100 options for that. I'm like, no, there's not. In my world, yeah, there's kind of okay, we can start with yes or no. You know, it's really, but I'm like, but when I'm working on somebody, not Carolyn, but somebody like that, I'm like, where do you feel this? And they don't even know. I'm like, no, where in your body do you feel it? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, I'm going to sit here till you know. Like, you got to come up with something because it's your body. And I'm working on the
different.
physical.
I don't know, like, because I am probably either spiritual or emotional type, but
I think
like,
you're emotional.
Yeah.
my body is very now. I mean, the issue that was coming up with me is like, I'm like, my mind is getting frustrated because my body's sending it all these signals and it doesn't understand. Like I can feel them, but it's like, well, what does that mean? What do you want me to do with that? Like, what is that? You know, it's more like, and the more embodied I get, it's like, I'm getting so many physical signals through my body.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like overwhelming, I guess I would say.
Sometimes I tell Lauren about something that's happening for me and she cries. Even though like probably I would be the one to be crying, but she can feel it more than me sometimes. And then I go, oh, am I skipping something or avoiding something here? And then I can see how maybe I'm kind of hovering around a thing that feels big, but she can like, it feels like this. It feels like she can
like she can go, stop, there's something
she
here.
Literally tells me to stop. She's like, Bethany, stop talking past what's happening right now. And she will have an emotional response to what I've said, which invites me into actually being with my emotional response, which I think is well balanced for me, because I think there's probably a bias around my body and my mind and the future and an analytical kind of future-y thing that happens. And so the invitation is really friendly. It feels more balanced. But that's my experience of Lauren, is like, especially lately, dear. It's just like people are talking.
And she has so much face. I mean, we all have faces because you have face, but she has more face.
Say more.
So when typing, there's all these attributes. There's the way people speak. There's the way they look. Like physical people are bigger on the top. They're very, it's arm dominant. So
that's you.
Like arm, yeah. And so analytical people are more leg dominant, and spiritual trunk, and emotional people, like there's face. They're all face. Whereas compared to other people, everybody else, compared to emotional faces, everybody else is like back here, and emotional faces are here.
Am I back here?
Relatively.
It's okay.
Relative to someone like her.
Yeah. I feel that. And even in my own voice, like my friend Paul is a voice and speech coach, and he does like Alexander and all these things. And it's like, he's like, you're up here, Bethany. It's very blah, 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 blah. It's like, he's always like, hello, dear. And he's my own, like, this like soft, hi, blah, blah, blah. Instead of being like embodied in my own voice, like, like this whole thing. And I feel I can imagine that that's true for my face too.
Do you have like a great, Lauren, not remembrance for or recollection of the past? She's talking about the past often.
I don't have good memories of the past, but my memories are emotional memories. Like that's the way that if I remember something, it's because there was a strong emotional.
I've seen her, though, enter another person's field over Zoom who is remembering the past, and Lauren can describe the room of the memory the person's having, which is usually tied to something quite emotional for them. Like, you know, if we're doing persona work and Jungian work and whatever, it's like, you know, something comes up and we talk about where some persona first showed up. Lauren can, it feels like maybe it's through the emotional conduit, but she can like enter another person's field. I've had this. I was in heartbreak. I was in a breakup, and she, over the phone, just like fully came into, I could feel Lauren hugging me, like coming into my field and like being with me. And so it does feel like a lot of
special power.
It's a full-blown superpower. Which
well, if you think about emotion is energy in motion, and my experience is like the more growth and expansion I have, I just become more aware of like, I am energy and you are energy, and that there aren't a lot of barriers for most of us. We can put them up, but very few of us really consciously know how to do it. And when you're willing or open, your energetic field is open, and my field can come into your field, and we can experience the same energy at the same time. But I know that my emotionality is what has given, like, open the channel of that first. You know what I mean? Like the level of,
because all the energy stuff is more spiritual realm, but you can bring the emotional component to it to flesh out spirit.
And I feel like I can like if what I've experienced is if I go into someone while they're having experience, I can transmute or move the energy through my body in service of them. So like how you're saying you can move fascia, right? And that allows a release. It's like I'm going in and I'm opening the emotional channel, and what they're not willing to be aware of will come over here into my body.
Right. Because that's where you're a genius, is with emotion. Like my brother's like that, you know, that, he doesn't step over. He doesn't step over the important thing that I'm usually willing to step over. That is emotional. That is, has to do with connecting or resolving or, I'm like, no. He's like, yes. That thing. I'm like, oh, that thing.
So many ways to heal, and so, you know, just so interesting, like all the different angles of life and awareness and healing that's possible. Are you an Enneagram 8?
I don't remember.
Oh,
sorry. I've given up all other typings.
I could see it. I mean, she's got to be about, I could see 8 for her, but it's like my experience of her is, remember when we were talking with Reese and I was saying, well, there's like a different way to be like, here's what's going on. Like, here, let's talk about this important thing where there's a lightness to it. I feel like Mary's integrated like a comedic, light, silly, like part of like, I'm going to challenge you. Like, I'm going to tell you what I see. I'm not going to like pretend this isn't happening. Like, this is what's going on. So I do feel the intensity maybe of a type 8, and the challenger of a type 8 that's what it's called, a challenger. Okay. But like, she's not scary. Well, I'm not scared of her, but I'm an 8, but like, it's not scary. It's like fun. It's like silly. And it's like, of course.
And people don't mess with me. I thought all along not just growing up, the last 10 years of my life, you know, like somebody would mess with my female coworker and they wouldn't mess with me. And I'm like, well, they need me more. But I realized that my persona of leadership and power, people are like, I'm not messing with that.
It's very,
like I'm not messing with that. And so
it's an 8 energy for sure.
8 energy. I worship 8. So
and
I was like,
and I didn't know that. I didn't know that about myself. And I learned it as part of trying to get my hands around my type and just living with it. And I'm like, oh, and it just like so much about my past just went kink, 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 kink. And then I was like, well, maybe you want to own that, Mare, because, you can already do it.
Be direct about it. That's not like an 8 at all.
Yeah. I'm like, really? Another surgery? And like, people are telling me I'm doing the intake, and I'm like, you're hurting me. you're hurting me, all these surgeries. Like, you know how much I'm going to have to spend on Google to even look this up? Like, dear God.
Well, what is this journey around fascia and your own healing like? What do you believe now about collective healing? What are some of your beliefs and opinions about how we heal people collectively?
I have trouble getting all the way to collective healing.
Uh-huh.
You know, I
It's
can
not
get
here now.
it's, you know, I'm kind of just holding my own feet to the fire for my own crap and for what I can do for other people. And, you know, so I feel in regards to collective healing, I'm kind of one person at a time, you know, trying to, I can bring
whole body relax around that
an immense amount of intention to my work. And I vote. I'm like, we're gonna have some miracles today. You know, I'm saying to myself, and I'm like, I was a rug salesperson, you know, 6 years ago, like, and since the mid 80s, you know, it's like, I have no place doing this, but I do it, you know, and we get these kind of results. So I'm meant to be doing it. And it is, again, I learned this from Bob Cooley, you know, with these other types of people that are around, there's a reason why there's so many damn people around. It's so that we can learn from their perspective. So I don't think that I know everything or that I know all the things. And I learn what I need to learn exactly when I need to learn it, because it's usually my client tells me it. They give me the answer. And
relief.
you know, it's like, and that is, you know, if I were praying, that is what I pray, that I learn what I need to learn exactly when I need to know it. And I totally lifted that from Bob Cooley because I was so inspired when he said that. And, but part of my not being open initially and understanding that was that I couldn't learn from other people and I didn't even freaking care. I was just like, away with you. Just know. And so, my type, which is a lung type, the meridian in the pec minor is balanced by the large intestine meridian, which is in spirit. I am balanced by spirituality and energy and perspective.
What's my type? What are the meridians associated with my type?
It would either be
analytical, right?
Yeah, it would either be brain, which is central hamstring, which he took out of extraordinary vessels, or gallbladder along the IT band, kidney, which is front, and stomach. So I don't know. I mean, of all those, maybe brain.
For me.
Mm-hmm.
I get,
which is where mastery is housed.
I mean, I'm up here. I am like up here, but I'm not disconnected from this part. I get a ton of information here, but I love being up here. And in our world, we talk about the 3 centers of intelligence, and we talk about IQ, EQ, BQ.
And I'm like, I gotta go. I'm like, you're tiring me out. I'm like,
and a type 8, which is my type, is a body type. And I do know a lot about like an instinctual awareness, like of like, sometimes it's just like such a strong fucking yes before I even know why. And I'm just like, I don't know why, but yes. Or a no.
Right. And instinctuality is in physicality.
Okay, great. So that exists
intuition,
for me.
And intuition too.
Yeah, I feel like a weird relationship with intuition. Sometimes I feel like I have it, and sometimes I feel like I'm like, huh? But like type 8 goes to type 5, which is heady in quote unquote stress. So I get a lot of feedback. You're in your head. And there's a lot of ways where I'm really fucking good at being in my head. Like,
right. No, you want me to use my head, but
yeah, like I'm great at that. Like actually that's a zone of genius for me too, but there is a communication happening. There's something happening. So like when I enter a room, sometimes I'm like, I can just tell powerful? Who's not powerful? Who do I like? Who do I not like? There's a bunch of information that's immediately accessible, but it doesn't end there. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? And how does that affect the future?
Mhm.
So then with my day job, it's environmental advocacy. So I'm like, if there's a senator over here and there's a executive director of a trade association over here, and they both touch these and they have working groups around this environmental thing I care about, like I can map, there's a lot of mapping of like, what do I need to do to enact the thing that I care about in the future happening? That feels instinctual to me.
Mhm.
The mapping part of it a little bit.
Mhm.
And so when you were like, you're an analytical type, something in me actually relaxed, because sometimes we make it bad to be in our heads and not in our bodies and not in our emotions or this, that. And so there was something that really relaxed of like, no, you're good at that. There's something that you're really good at, and there's something that you're supposed to be doing around that. Felt kind of, it like clicked back into place or something. And I was like, yeah, I am good at that. And I think a lot of it's driven from like some kind of instinctual information that I get sometimes. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean,
With
and
your
what I'm
type
trying to
of
do, not mine, but I love it and I use it. And as she's talking, I'm like, oh my God, she's spiritual. But I mean, that's kind of the fun of it for me, is that, yeah, it'd be great if somebody would be like, yeah, Bethany's definitely this. And so I type them, and then it's my working theory. And then, sometimes I'm just, lying in bed at night and I'm like, oh my God, Bethany's a pericardium. She's a spiritual type. But, that's my own problem. But it's not so I can typecast her. It's so that, I'm trying to embrace all of the gifts that I know about her. And just, touch it. Like you ask a dog, touch. And so the aim, for me, is to have some access to emotionality, because that's the toughest one. That's the toughest world for me. Because I spent much more of my life trying to get away from people. And, that's not a way to live life, but kind of coming at it and seeing how weak I am with it, with being stronger in who I am, helps me.
Is that common for body types to want to get away from people?
The again, this is Bob's work. So the physical types are self-focused, which is kind of excludes folks. And so the analytics, and the others, emotional types and spiritual types, are purportedly other focused. So they get their information from others about themselves.
Lauren,
like I didn't know that, like, so Bob explained my brother to me, and I had this intense, experiment with my brother and Bob Cooley as we're all learning. And so the luxury of that was that I finally, in our 50s, understood my brother and what emotionality is and could be, and the magic that it is. And it's far from me, but without it, there's nothing. Emotionality is where all the good, gushy stuff is. It's where all the good restaurants are. It's all the yummy stuff. It's all the intimacy. It's all the gushy stuff. And
gushy stuff.
Who the hell wants to live without
you're
that?
Muted, Lauren. That's Lauren. The gushy stuff.
Yeah, but there's a shadow side. Like, it's sometimes I'm like, my body can't almost hold the more attuned I get to my emotions, then it's like pain is so much more vivid. You know what I mean? In my experience, like grief is so much more, like everything is more, joy is more, bliss is more, ecstasy is more, but those things are more too. I can do a lot of like compare and despair about different types, and thinking, well, like, at least you don't have to,
feel all your feelings all the time, and everyone else is.
Like it can be so
My brother's
debilitating.
like, I can't walk down the hall of an apartment building necessarily and have it go well. And I'm like, huh? I'll talk to him. He's like, everything going on in the world. I'm like, huh? I'm like, he's like, don't you feel it? I'm like, I do not. I do not. And by the way you're talking about it, I'm kind of delighted by that, but that's literally,
That's what I mean. It's like, like sometimes, especially in the world we live in, where like what you produce is so important. It's like being so attuned to others' emotions and energy all the time. It can just feel like, right. In the level of just, I get hijacked. I get really hijacked.
Yeah. And so for in this system with the meridians and the muscles, for myself, my first place once I got open was like, I gotta do some stuff. I gotta discover and learn at a higher level. So I went to spirituality or energy work just because it balances me. I mean, emotionality just scares the hell out of me, but spirituality balances me. So, there's some, way that you can be balanced that,
it's important. I mean, that my sister's an 8, Bethany's an 8, like they're body head types, and like we balance each other, it's important that we have. And ultimately, that's what I was going to say earlier. I just want to be integrated. I want to be a little bit more balance between, I mean, I have moments I can be very heady. I can go very far out in complexity, too, so I have that, there's like a contrast there. And like, I know I'm not an instinctual, my body isn't like, I can see with Bethany and these other people, they feel it in their body, like they know something. And I don't have that level of awareness, but I am becoming like much more embodied. And so that's what I aspire to. I aspire to like an integration of all the systems where they're all balanced, like knowing that I have one that's a strength or that's more.
Yeah. And I don't know if your balance is more analytics or it might be physicality.
I think it is.
So I have this girlfriend who I met her in Boston. She very soon after moved to New York, but I just had to have her be my friend. I was like a maniac. I wasn't stalking her, but I didn't know what it was. And, 35 years later, I learned about the types, and she is my balancing type. And I was like, no wonder I've been in love with her forever. Not like in love and unrequited, but like, I'm like, she is the other side of the moon for me. Every phone call we have, she reveals what I cannot see. And we're not having heady conversations all the time. How many times has she said to me, Mary, it's not either or, it's always and. And I'm like, no, it's not. She's like, but she's always showing me the other side. And I'm just, I don't have other people that I love quite like that, because she is the dark side of my moon that I cannot see, and I am hers.
Love you, Lauren.
So in physicality, it is the land of doing. Like nobody can do the things like me. I don't want to sit and talk about it. I don't want to plan it out. I want to get up and do it. And she wants to talk about it. And I'm like, I can hardly stay in some conversations because I'm like, I'm ready. I'm like, it's like a dog. I'm like, can we go outside? Can we go outside now? Can we go outside yet? And dogs are in physicality. So, I'm like, and she's like, all the other way. And that, having that 30 years with her and then being told about the types, I was like, oh, because I didn't want to do this type things. I just wanted to fix my shoulders and my back. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'll never. Right,
I was going to say this, all of this sounds a little bit more than just doing, like you had to learn and probably train, and which is a little of doing, but also a little of thinking, analyzing, probably.
A little. Yeah, I have to always analyze. I'm like, I'm moving this limb out. I'm like, what is that? What is that tissue? What is it? Is it scar tissue? What is that? What is that? Because that tells me the next move I'm doing.
When you pull it, do you feel messages or have pictures, or like the things happen in your body when you're moving the fascia?
Images? Do you get
I get images. It doesn't feel like people are always like, oh, you got to protect yourself. There's all this energy. And I'm like, I don't know from energy. I've been trying to get away from people so long that I'm like, I don't, and I'm more open than I was, but I didn't know I was as intuitive as I am, and people tell me that, people who are going to, 2 different practitioners for their health. And they're like, well, I go to him for this, but you're way more intuitive. And I'm like, people just kept saying it.
Right,
I'm like, what would you like to work on today? I don't want to, just run my agenda. I might as well check in with them. And they're like, oh, you just intuit it. And I just kept hearing it. So, so it's very blank for me. Sometimes I'm just standing over somebody going, hoping something comes to me, literally. And I think out of that nothingness is where intuition is for me, because if I was trying to do intuition, God knows what would happen. But I do find myself saying things. I'm like, this is very old, and sometimes tissue feels very gooky and dry. Like, this is old. And then the crazy things come out of the mouth.
Didn't you just say that to me last session? Do you remember what about?
I don't.
Why would you? Because it's not.
Right. Just channeling.
But sometimes people tell me, and so it's not all dramatic. Like I grabbed somebody's arm to just start the move, and she's like, my mother always grabbed me there. And that was it. That was the beginning of her and her upper back thing, and her not wanting to be like her mom, and, wanting to get free of all that. And lo, if I don't touch her right where her mother touched her. So it's not like these big, it's not like people don't ever cry, but mostly they don't cry with me. They're just like, that reminds me of I'm like, do you want to say any more? Or, and for
that
me,
was my thought when you were talking. I'm like, fascia just holds memories. Like, I just think it's like,
and trauma, so people, so people talk about dense fascia in a really specific way, because they want to get away from it. Like, so they're literally like trying to get away from their arm, or they have a bad relationship with their arm.
In awareness or not awareness, like you just know.
No, in the way they speak about it. And so it's because, kind of the trauma is back there is in the fascia. And so in trying to get away from the trauma, they're trying to get away from their actual body. Mm. So that's a little sobering, but it's gone okay.
Can you tell a couple of stories of people's experiences of whatever their, pain or their situation was with their body or whatever it was, and like what fascia stretching with the Chinese meridians in mind, what kind of changes happened? Like some stories of just like what has.
All right. I mean, I think your stories are amazing. I mean, it's there was a woman that I was stretching, and she was really talkative. And I think, and she had like a trainer for everything. She had 2 or 3 trainers and these people, and that, just like everybody was kind of working on her behalf. And she talked the whole session, and there was some upper body stuff. And she talked about, being abused in school. But she talked about it in such a lighthearted manner, I almost didn't catch it. And she was wearing yoga pants. And I was like, she's emotional, because she's an emotional type. And she got up, and people get up and down a lot when I work with them, because we're trying to integrate the changes. and you're checking in and seeing what you notice. And we're offering each other perspective. You know, at one time when Bethany got up, I'm like, oh my God, all her freckles are gone. She's like, oh God, we got a problem. You know, and I'm like, your color's funny, you know? But this lady has yoga pants on and she's like, my yoga pants are loose. Well, yoga pants don't just get loose, right? But it's like she got more contained, you know, so all of her other people and all of her, it's like she didn't have so much interiority, you know? So, you know, she goes through some memories of school and that trauma goes, and she could be with herself a little. And she was like, and she looked different. She went, and that's happened a couple times. It's amazing. But like, and so I try to explain what I see and explain it to people, but you know, that happens never for people. So, you know, I got an uphill battle, but that's an amazing thing. I'll never forget. You know, my yoga pants feel loose.
Well, so the first time I worked with Mary, we did a whole bunch of stuff on the table, and then I stood up. She's like, go look at yourself in the mirror. And like I said, I was like, wow, like I look vibrant, like I look alive, like there's color in my face and my pupils look big. Like there was something
and
happening.
Less
I don't look,
worried.
I felt, I felt in the here and now, I guess. And then we worked together the second time and we did a bunch of stuff, and I got up and I guess I was white. That's what you mean when the color.
I was like, oh my God, she doesn't have freckles. I'm like, I think she had freckles when she comes here, and there's something wrong about this.
So what does that tell you? Like when you see, oh, there's less aliveness in my client, I'm
like, holy shit, Houston, we've got a problem. I'm like, all I can think is like, oh my God, we're in the middle. You know, you're going back down on the table. You know, the meridians carry chi and life force. So the yang ones bring energy up and the yin ones bring energy down.
So I had like too much down.
And sometimes it can't go up. Sometimes a channel's blocked, or I don't know how many channels can be blocked, but all I know in the moments like that is like, we're not done. I need to do something. Of course I would think that, but I would never leave somebody like that. And that happens often enough that I'm not really terribly concerned. But, you know, we're dealing with energy. Right. I can work entirely on somebody's lower body, and they stand up and they just go boom, you know, just their body, you know, their posture's better. Their chest is wider. Their shoulders are back, not like they're even trying. They're like, oh my God, my posture. And I'm like, And that's the energy. I mean,
and they come back because you were saying like, it doesn't go back the way it was. So if someone comes back to you for another session, it's because there's a tissue somewhere else, you know, like I'm imagining kind of like Play-Doh, or when you like push, you know, you push like, I don't know, like if something is bloated or whatever, and you push kind of all the fluid in one side or whatever, you know, it's like, when you're moving one thing and fixing that, does it just go somewhere else, you know?
No, like if on the front body, fascia holds tension and tightness. So it dissipates. It just leaves. I think that's like a lot of people, their face drops, not like they drop the worry and the anxiety, you know? So that's the whole front body and the interior, the inside of the legs and the inside of the arms, you know, but on the back body, you know, I can't address the fascia in somebody's central hamstring, the back of their legs, all the way from the bottom of their feet up their legs in one session. Not if you're, you know, 20 years old. It's that thick that you need to keep at it. You know, so some people go right back exactly to what they've been doing that is literally harming them. You know, like some clients I have, like I can't keep up with it because they're not changing.
I know
that.
you only had 2 sessions with me. Oh, okay.
So, optimally, I'm looking to retool my practice a little so that people need to work with me at least 6 sessions, because we're spending a session or 3 getting to know each other and each other's bodies. And although I tend to have pretty good results, it's like really hard not to feel something midway through the first session. Like you don't need to go home. You're right there, feeling it. So, but what's available in terms of developing yourself is huge. But largely people are coming to me for physical stuff. And great.
Or they imagine they are. And then they arrive and they realize they were coming for something else, and then they get it.
Or people, I find people are really, fairly desperate. And a lot of times I'm one of the later people they're visiting, and they're out of, not out of options, but they're like, yeah, whatever. And then they're like, oh, that was good. So it's a funny situation to be getting in with people.
Yeah.
No.
So you should come up and get a session with Mary.
I know, I'm super jealous. I'm like, I don't want to wait. I feel my impatience.
We should do an online class.
I'll do an online.
Happy birthday.
I'm traveling. That's one of the reasons I kind of need to go a little bit early. I'm going to Philadelphia at like 7:45 in the morning, and I'll have like 5 more hours of work to do. And I've traveled every week this month, which is not like me. I mean, literally every week, but I think it's also like saved me quite a bit from emotional stuff. So anyways, I'm like ready for like one of the like 3 days where you do nothing and like you don't have to leave your bed. Right. And nobody.
I'm not telling anyone you're here. You're going to come. I'm not.
No, Bethany is too busy. She has too many people at her house. Like, I'm not going to your house to relax. I'm going to your house if I want to be social.
One experience, which was
Bethany, I know you. It's not that I know you can be relaxing, and I know I would not relax there. Like it's just.
All right. I feel like when we have the basement apartment, there's going to be.
How do you keep selling it to everyone or like asking everyone to move in it?
Well, no, I think
Jacqueline said you basically told her about it too. I'm like, the woman still lives there, Jacqueline.
Well, I feel like no one should live there, but I feel like when someone of course, it's right in the hallway, first door on the right. I feel like when someone can come and have their total own space, like with a like separation, I feel like that's going to be really friendly for me and for people too, because I want people to be able to come here.
Right now, the most relaxing place for me is my mom's house, which is so interesting.
Yeah, that is.
And that room, that very specifically, like I really re-owned that bedroom.
Yeah.
And that bedroom. And then like when Jacqueline came here, like this bedroom feels much better. And it's definitely like second, I guess I would say right now, but I'm just like really craving like my own, like I don't want to like go to someone else's.
So what happens in your body when you're in your mom's house in that bedroom that you've been occupying space in?
I just noticed it really this time because I had left and came back. I just was like, I feel like all my needs are going to be met. Like I don't feel scared or like here, it's like I'm responsible for me, all the things that means, my house, my payment, my work.
Your son.
Taylor, yeah, the dogs, like it's like there's this vigilance that is happening. And
do you think that's because your mom was like helping you so much, like literally just with rides or food or dishes? Like, do you think that there's like a learned experience of being there where you were getting supported that was like feeling really good?
I think it feels maybe newer. Yeah, I think it feels like a lot of like needs are met, and even like emotional needs that I can't really like just by having your mom in the house with you or my brother's there, my sister's there, especially. It's like, there's just this like way that I relax. And it's like when I feel into it, I'm like, I don't want to live here. It doesn't feel like mine. It's like, it really feels like going to your grandma's house or going, that feeling of like when you go to a really reliable place. And I think I hope I'm moving in a direction. It feels like it's going to be a slow direction of like creating my own home, which is something I do really appreciate about your space. Cause it's like you really own and embody the space as this is my space. It's everything that I wanted it to be. You know what I mean? There's just like, I don't feel that way in any city right now. And I don't feel that way in my house. So I'm very curious about that and what that means for me. And there's just like this way that I'm like, I don't know. There's a part of me that's scared of like, there's a part of me that's very terrified that whatever my life is about to like merge into, like requires me to be very, very flexible and not be attached or at home anywhere, whether it's like a partnership or a home. Like there's this part of me that's like, it doesn't feel like fear for 100%. It feels like maybe that is what's going to happen. Like, it's like, you're not, I don't know. There's just something, I can't put my finger on it, but it's like you may not have that particular type of experience.
Do you ever feel at home in the world, regardless of where you are? Have you?
Yeah, like I feel at home with people is the most true thing. If like certain people are there, it doesn't matter. I could be in any house, in any city, in any place. Yeah.
Got it.
It probably goes with being emotional type. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mary, it was so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. Great to be
fascinated by what you're doing. And it was like this round of podcasts has been so fun because they're like I never know who I'm meeting. I don't know anything about, like, our first season was like a lot of people we both knew well. And so it was like, oh, we're talking about our relationship. We're talking about this. It's like, and now I just pop on and I'm like, who am I meeting today? And like, it's cool to see how it feels like the universe or whatever is like attracting all these unique healing and healing that we get to like be connected to. And it's very cool.
Hey everybody, if you've got any feedback for us, we welcome it, or ideas about future guests, email us at healingcollectivepod@gmail.com. Our website is thehealingcollectivepodcast.com. We are at Healing Podcast on Twitter, and we are at Healing Collective Podcast on Instagram. Special thanks to Monda Creative, who edits all of our podcasts, and Two Tall Women Productions, who produce. Thank you.